Hi, this is Daniel Rowe with TradeThePlan.com. In this video, I want to show you how to operate BlackBird using the BlackBird template that I provided with the Divergence Analyst installer. In a previous video, I went over the layout of the workspaces and how the BloodHound template works on the tick BB chart. I name it BB for BlackBird because this is the chart that you would put BlackBird on. And then the OTF BloodHound templates on the min 3, min 2, min 1, which are just looking for the potential ends of corrective patterns, which is to say potential corrections. So these templates look for the pullbacks within a trend. And then because these are the workspaces and templates included with only the Divergence Analyst, obviously I cannot add the replicator into these templates, which would then be able to access those pullbacks. So that could be the topic of another video. If you own the replicator, you could add a solver into this BloodHound template and then connect the replicator to the BloodHound instance on each of those minute charts, min 1, min 2, min 3, to grab the signals from those operative time frame templates and pull them into this strategy template. Okay, but again, that's outside the scope of this video. So let's first add BlackBird to this chart. I just right click on the chart, select strategies, double click on shark indicators, double click on BlackBird. That adds it below into the configured panel. And then I click on BlackBird settings here, double click on the Trade the Plan folder, and then double click on Divergence Analyst folder, and there it is. So I select it, you can double click on it to open it, select it, click open, whatever. And I'm connected to Market Replay right now, so that's the first thing that you'll have to do. If it's set to Sim 101 by default, which it usually is, then you would change it to Playback 101. And the way that I'm going to show you using this the first time without the BloodHound template loaded into this BlackBird template, because that's the way that it comes by default. It doesn't have this BloodHound template loaded into the BlackBird template by default. I'll show you how to add that and then save another copy and then show you a couple of ways that you can modify it. But the way that I'm using it this first time is just as kind of a glorified ATM strategy. And we'll dig into that in a moment. So calculate on bar close, on each tick, on price change. It doesn't really affect the base template as such. When we load the BloodHound template into it, that's when this calculate setting will become important. Other than that, you can go through shark indicators documentation on some of these properties if you want to know more. The only thing that I'll leave checked is this exit on session close. So this will make it exit 30 seconds before the close. And then time in force, good till canceled, GTC. And then I just enable it and click OK to load. Okay, so let's click on order settings to open up the strategy template, trade management template. And you see that it doesn't have a signal set. So as it is right out of the gate, it has no reader indicators in here and it has no BloodHound in here. What it will do is it will send in the first order set A. It sends both orders in as a limit so that you can use the dynamic planning. We'll get to that in a moment. It sends the first order in as essentially a market order depending on the instrument and the average range of the instrument. So it's going to buy the ask. If we're going long, it's going to buy the ask plus 1 tick. So that would be fixing your slippage at no more than 1 tick. Okay, so let's say it's 113.34. Order set A would go in at 113.35 going long. And then order set B goes in at exactly the ask. Okay, I'm sorry. I said 113.34. That was the last traded price. The ask might actually be 1 tick greater than that. At the moment, you don't really know just by looking at it. We'd have to see the bid-ask depth of market. But let's say the ask price was at 34. The order set A would send in the order at 35, and then B would send it in right at the ask price at 34. The entry for order set B goes in at exactly the ask price. So if the ask is 35, it goes in at 35. The profit target for order set A goes in at 6 times the average range. The average range indicator, it's a very simple indicator that we include with all of our tools rather than using the ATR, which includes a small algorithm for incorporating the gap between the previous close and the next bar's open, especially useful for daily bars, let's say. This one just does a very simple average, in this case a 100 period, of the exact range of the bar, high minus low, plus 1 tick, so that it doesn't give a value of 0 when you have a bar that has the same exact price for the high and the low. Okay, so that's what the AR is. It's average range, and it goes in at 6 times the average range for profit target 1. The trailing action for profit target for order set A will tighten the profit target to the last traded price, which is, effectively setting it at market. Once the high of a bar for a long is touching or above that upper Bollinger Band line, and the trade is in the profit by at least 4.5 times the average range. And that's just to tighten up that profit target, in case 6 times the average range is a bit too far. This will tighten it up to no less than 4.5 ATR's profit, in case it's in a pretty strong, really fast initial move up and out, and it gets into that kind of overbought area outside of the upper Bollinger Band. This will tighten that up to the last price to be filled, and profit target B goes in at 9 times the average range, and it will trail the profit target to the VWAP's second standard deviation line plus a quarter average range, as you can see here, 0.25 times the average range above it for a long, so just slightly above that standard deviation 2 line for the VWAP, the volume weighted average price, those bands, the bottom band at the top. And it will only do that if that band, that second standard deviation line, is less than 9 times the average range from the entry price and greater than 6 times the average range than the entry price. So in other words, it's allowing the profit target to be trailed on that second standard deviation line of the VWAP if that line happens to be within 6 to 9 times the average range distance from the entry price. So it's not going to move the profit target further away from the entry, and it's not going to move it closer to the entry than the initial placement of the profit target for order set A. Okay, and then for the stop placement, you can see for order set A, it goes in at 2 times the average range for the initial placement, and then the trail will trail the 8-bar swing low for a long, or the 8-bar swing high for a short, once the trade is in profit by at least 2 times the average range. Whoops, I just changed it. There it is, 2 times the average range. Okay, so once the trade is in profit by 2 times the average range, it will start to trail the stop just behind that 8-bar swing, which is set here. 8-bar, 2 swings, and it's using the bottoms for the long and the widest swings. So this is the swing that comes with BloodHound. It's called the swings, highs, and lows. And just to show you that really quick, that's this indicator. It's named swing, highs, and lows from Shark Indicators. It comes with BloodHound. But I've removed the label from all of these indicators to just make the chart a little bit cleaner. There's the Bollinger Band. Of course, the toolbar doesn't come with the Divergence Analyst, but I added on here so that I can do a few things quickly without having to use NinjaTrader's drawing tools. Okay, and then the stop for order set B goes in at 3 times the average range, and then it will trail the 25-bar swing, which is that one that has the crosses, the larger one. So the 8-bar swing has the dots, those little dots, and then the 25-bar swing has those crosses to mark. Okay, and it will trail that 25-bar swing once it's in profit by at least 3 times the average range. So once it's in the profit by the size of the initial placement of the stop, then it will start to trail the stop. Okay, so not too fancy, but at least enough to give you a starting point if you want to come in here and modify it and maybe tighten up the values a bit. Whatever you want to do, this at least will give you a starting point to begin working with BlackBird and get the hang of it and just see how things work. So let's turn it on now and just see how this operates. And rather than bringing that BloodHound template into BlackBird for this first example, we're just going to use BlackBird as kind of a manual entry tool that will then automatically manage the stops and targets, placements, and trails. We'll speed this up a bit. Okay.
Order submitted.
So I just click on go long. It enters both contracts. It was a little bit fast, but it typically is quite fast. Even though those entries are set as limit orders, they do tend to get filled pretty quickly. Not always though. It's fairly rare that they don't get filled. Okay, so what just happened right there? The trade was in the profit by over 2 times the average true range, and stop A, the stop for order set A, started to trail half an ATR, or excuse me, half an average range AR behind that 8-bar swing point. Those little dots right there. So it's in the profit by 2 times the average true range or more, and then it trails that stop half an ATR behind that 8-bar swing point. So let's keep going. And right now, it was in the profit by at least 3 times the average true range, and then order set B's stop started to trail at 0.75 times the average range behind that 25-bar swing highs lows indicator from Shark Indicators. Oh, and real quick, I forgot to mention that after a 3-bar delay for order set B's profit target, if the VWAP is between that range of greater than 6 times the average range from the entry price and less than 9 times the average range from the entry price, which is the initial placement of the profit target, then it will start to trail on that second standard deviation line of the VWAP. So this is the rule for having the standard deviation 2 for a long above the entry price by 9 times the average range or more. And then this is the rule for having the VWAP no less than 6 times the average range from the entry price. Okay, and then here's the 3-bar delay. So it won't check these 2 rules until after 3 bars from the time that order set B is filled. And that's just to give you time long enough to kind of see what's happening, really. If you go back and watch it, you'll see it snap from up in here down to that line. And now it's actually trailing it, it's attached to it. And in a moment, order set A's profit target is going to snap to the last traded price, which is going to fill it immediately once the high of the bar is beyond that upper Bollinger Band. Right in here. There we go. Okay, now that we're putting in a swing point low, once that 25-bar swing point shifts up, this stop will trail behind it right in here. There we go. And it's behind it at 3/4 of an average range. You can tighten that up if you want to. If you wanted to set it to, say, a quarter, you could set that to 0.25 instead of 0.75. And of course, I'm using average range instead of ticks so that you can use this on any instrument. And here it's about to be filled.
Order filled.
And the trade is closed. And one other way that you can use this is for dynamic planning. And that was the whole purpose behind using, like I said, using these limit orders for the entry price. So If I use dynamic planning, plan a short, let's say, I can then move these orders around into place until I get them like I want them, and then I can execute
Order
it.
submitted.
See, you can't
Order
do that
submitted.
when the orders are set to
Order canceled.
enter at market. That order was canceled because more than 5 minutes passed, and that might be a little bit too much. In fact, I think it is. I'm going to go ahead and change it now. So both of these entry orders have cancels on them so that, it doesn't send in an order and then not get filled, and then it stays active for the entire day, and then eventually it comes back and hits it when you're not looking, or something stupid. So the first one is set to 20 bars or 300 seconds, as is the second one. Maybe 5 minutes is not quite enough when you're using it with dynamic planning, so let's just set it to like 10 minutes. Yeah. And I've got a little guide to go with this.
Order filled.
Okay, one other thing. Let's turn it back on. I'll use the dynamic planning again. Plan short. Let's just execute
Order
it.
submitted.
When I move, I can move these orders manually, but when I do move them, the trails that are set up for the orders are no longer active. So if I come over here to order monitor, you can see that the global trailing is on, but the individual order set trailing is off. It's because I moved them. So I can turn them back on, and there it snapped that order back into place. You see that? Well, it did that for the first time, not back into place. And then if I move them again, let's say I just move A, then the trailing is off for order set A. So I'll just reactivate that. They've even added some break-even type functions, which in that case closed it, which makes sense, obviously, as the entry was down here. So it's a pretty cool tool, really. It's quite exceptional what you can do with BlackBird, but it takes some getting used to, as anything does. And I think this template provides you with a way of doing just that. You can modify this and work to add your own rules. Spend some time with it, get familiar with it. Please don't try to trade this live right out of the gate. Really know what you're doing with it and be able to modify it, and just try to break it. Spend a lot of time with it in sim and market replay, and get as familiar with it as you possibly can, and then work to create some of your own trade management rules. And Zach at Shark Indicators is always happy to help you guys out I think it's every Friday. So if you have any questions about specific rules that you're trying to add, I think Zach will work to answer those during a Friday session. Okay, so that's it for this video. Next video, I'll show you how to add that BloodHound template as the entry signal within BlackBird.